Today we're talking about the most important nutrient for all livestock, water. It seems simple enough, but keeping adequate water available to your animals through all the seasons can be quite challenging. I'll be sharing some tips to manage water efficiently, as well as explain how we do it off-grid. Before we get started on today's topic, I want to read a review titled, Great Practical Tips. Loved the simple step-by-step details, so practical. Millie lays it all out for you in a tactical way and erases the overwhelm. Looking forward to learning more. Thank you. If you'd like to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, scroll down to Ratings and Reviews, click on the purple words, Write a Review, then give me stars and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear from you, and you might just hear me share your review on the podcast.
Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goat-Wise podcast. I'm Millie Bradshaw, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. Here we'll talk about raising goats, chickens, and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock.
All right, time for the ranch update. We're nearing halfway through kidding already. It got going fast and has been pretty steady. As of last night, we have 58 kids on the ground. 4 are bottle babies, 2 of those because they were triplets, and we've lost 3 so far. We had a stretch of unseasonably hot weather, and the newborn kids have a hard time with that, so that was one of the deaths. We typically see the highest number of births on days 7 through 10, and that will be this week, so I'm excited to see how that goes. We're spending every free minute on fence. Well, mostly it's been my husband and the kids while I take care of kidding. As our numbers have grown, the labor involved in moving electric netting every single day has gotten overwhelming, so we're trying something new this year. We're replacing almost a mile of fence with field fence, barbed wire, and an offset hot wire so that we have a secure perimeter fence to keep the goats and livestock guardian dogs in while giving them more space to graze than we can with the whole group in netting. We'll still be using rotational grazing, but the labor should be much less and livestock performance should go up. On to today's topic, water. Water is the single most important nutrient for all livestock. Good quality water in sufficient quantity is required for healthy, productive livestock. Though we carefully balance feed rations for animals, water is often overlooked. If you ever have an animal go off feed or start acting sick, the very first thing to check is their water source. Are they drinking enough? Is it clean? Accessible? Checking water first may save you from going down a path of expensive testing, vet bills, and worry when all they really needed was a drink of water. How do you know if they're drinking enough? Monitor it daily and you'll have a good idea of how much they're drinking in different seasons, and then you'll be able to see if they quit drinking. Several years ago, before off-grid life, we had a horse trough with a heater in it in the winter. We noticed by the water level that the horses hadn't drank much in the last day, and they were standing by the trough but not drinking. This was definitely something we didn't want to ignore, so we watched them for a while and happened to see one horse attempt to get a drink and immediately pull her head back as soon as her mouth hit the water. The heater element had rotted through, and every time they went to get a drink, they got shocked. Fortunately, nothing got hurt and we figured it out quickly. Because we noticed they had not been drinking their usual amount, we were paying attention to find out what was causing the problem. Make sure their water source is clean, not murky or stagnant. Some animals are pickier than others, and most will drink out of a gross puddle if they have to. But if you want to protect the health and production of your animals, it's best to provide them easy access to good water. Check troughs and buckets and clean them before they get really bad. It's not a big deal to clean them when you're using small troughs and buckets, and it can make a big difference in water consumption and the health of your livestock. Here's a few tips with goats. We use multiple troughs. They don't hold a lot of water, about 17 gallons, because goats are kind of funny. If there's a single poop berry in their water, they will not drink out of that trough. And For goats that are so picky, they sure seem to poop in their water a lot. But with multiple troughs, if they poop in one water, there's still a few available for them to drink out of. An interesting thing about goats is because they are prey animals, they don't like their line of sight blocked. So they don't like to stick their head down deep into a trough that they can't see out of. Another thing that can be a problem is that goats are playful, and especially baby goats. They like to jump on everything, climb on everything, and they sometimes get themselves in trouble. Your water troughs need to be shallow enough that if they fall in the water, they can get back out. Now, with tiny goats, that's really hard. But when they're small, they usually can't jump into the trough. We learned this lesson the hard way with our cattle troughs. At first, things were fine, and then the kids got comfortable and started to play. And these troughs are built in a circle, and in the middle is where the float valve and everything sits under a lid. And they would jump from outside the trough onto the lid and back out. And we had several goats actually slip and slide off of the lid and fall into the water, and they were too deep for them to get out. So that was not a good situation. In the summer, you want to make sure and check their water twice per day. You may only need to water once per day, but you definitely want to take a look. As it gets hotter, their water consumption will go up, and before you know it, they could be out of water. Also, if you're going to do intensive rotational grazing, you are probably going to need to haul water, so you'll need to have a system for that. When we began, we would haul water in a tank in the back of the Ranger or the four-wheeler, and that was enough because we didn't have so many goats. Now we use a trailer with an IBC tote, and again use multiple small troughs, which are easy to dump and move to the next pasture when we move the goats. In the winter, same strategy. Use multiple small troughs, but then adjust the amount of water that you give so that they only have a little bit left at the end of the day, which means less ice to deal with the next morning. The goats are smart, and they can learn to get a drink when you water. It takes time to teach them, and you need to be consistent and watch to make sure they're doing well. But if you water at the same time every day, they will learn that when the water cart is there, it is time to get a drink. Over the years, we've learned some things about chicken water. Now, if you have chickens, you know that chicken water is notoriously gross. It's one of the worst jobs on the place to have to clean the chicken waterers. So, several years ago, we switched to nipple waterers, which screw into some kind of a bucket. We use a 5-gallon bucket, and they actually tap the nipple and water comes out. We use those for chickens and turkeys. The water stays clean, and once they learn to use them, it's pretty much zero maintenance. In the summer, we refresh that water every day, and when it's hot, we check it in the afternoons also to make sure they didn't run out. In the winter, we still use the nipple waterers, but we dump them out in the evening when they go to roost. In the morning, depending on the temperature, if it's really cold, we'll actually add some warm water in the morning. They're the same as the goats. They'll learn to get a good drink when you put the water in there before it freezes up. Another thing we do with the chickens to help keep them hydrated is we offer a pan of scratch grains or feed with hot water added. They eat that right up and get a good amount of water with it. Horses are really adept at using no-freeze on-demand waterers, and that's a great option for them to have clean, fresh water in all seasons. With troughs, it's good to have horse troughs tall enough that they can't get their feet in it easily or paw it over. In some ways, when we moved off-grid, it felt like we had to relearn all of our things that had been successful with water in our situation in town. No electricity means no on-demand pumping and no heated waterers. So there's some special challenges there. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our water system and what we decided to do out here. When we decided to purchase our land, we knew one of the first things we had to figure out was water. My husband and I are both well trained in the importance of water and good water systems, and he has helped with the installation and maintenance of many large livestock watering systems. So we took that knowledge and started making a plan, but this time with the added challenge of doing it with solar. We had heard horror stories of solar water systems, so we wanted to make sure it was going to work in the way we needed it to. Solar pumps only pump water when the sun is shining, so if you need it to pump on demand, you need battery backup. Though the river runs through the lower end of our property, the upper end was underutilized because there wasn't water available there, and cattle had to travel down to the meadow for a drink, so they had no motivation to graze the upper land. We were designing our water system for cattle, so we knew we needed water access up higher. We decided to build our system with a large storage capacity that would gravity flow whenever the pump wasn't running. That way, we didn't need battery backup, and even if we had a long stretch of cloudy days, there would still be water in the storage available to use. Because we put the storage up so high, we have a lot of pressure and no need for a pressure tank. It truly is a simple system. From the off-grid living perspective, we always try to have at least 2 sources for necessities like water. Our primary source is, of course, the well and storage. And because of the storage capacity, if we have a problem with our system, we have some time to figure it out before it becomes an emergency. We also have the river running through our property, so in an emergency, there's another water source. The whole process of going off-grid can be overwhelming, but taking it one step at a time makes it much easier. As far as water accessibility for livestock, what we have here is so much simpler and more efficient than what we had in town. We have 2 frost-free hydrants at the barn, which we never had at our old place, so keeping clean, fresh water in front of our livestock is pretty straightforward most of the time. To recap, water is the most important nutrient for all livestock. If you have an animal that isn't acting normal, check its water source first, and you may save yourself a lot of trouble and time. Make sure the water source is clean and that troughs and buckets are reasonably clean. When it's hot in the summer, check water at least twice a day, and in the winter, make sure they get a good chance to get a drink before water freezes up. If you keep good water available for your animals, you'll improve their health, happiness, and production.
Hey there. Thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email, linked in the show notes. And meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.